Welcome back, everybody. Well, today, let's see if we can start on this ceiling. Hopefully we can finish it tomorrow. I'm installing a tongue and groove wood ceiling in this living room kitchen area. It's all big open living space. But I'm gonna do it in 3 sections. I'll have about a 6-foot section here, an 8-foot section here, and a 6-foot here. But then I will strip it and then we'll case around the edges. I may come back and do something crossways, I don't know, but I didn't want any butt joints where the 2 pieces were meeting, and so this room is almost 20 foot wide, so I didn't want to have a butt joint, so that's the reason I decided to break it up. What I've done prior to this is I had to come in where my joints will meet. I had to add a 2x4 to this truss, and then that measurement worked out about 3 inches out from that truss, so I had to go in, block above it, and then add a nailer out here to where that seam will meet. So that little man lift, I've rented that for some work out in the garage, and then finishing this porch. But I was out there working last night and I said, I wonder if I can fit it through that door. And so it clears by about 2 inches, so it's been a lifesaver in here, saved a bunch of time. But I reconfigured 2 of my can lights down there, so it'll break that up. And then I have myself some reference lines. I have squared off of this wall, and then I'll hold it off about a 1/2 inch there, and then we'll take off. And then I've just got me some reference marks on each side on where each segment will start and stop. But with that tongue and groove ceiling, obviously you've got that tongue and groove where that wood goes together, and I just want to try to keep this as airtight as I can. So I'm going to be putting R38 insulation over it, but I went ahead, for one, I've been trying to keep that cold weather out of here during these winter storms that we've been having, to try to keep it a little warmer in here. But I'm going to leave it up. I don't think I'll have a condensation problem. I'm going to be putting the wood over it, and then we'll insulate over top of it, so you shouldn't get any temperature differences there. And well, you'll have a big difference above the insulation, but I think we'll have it shielded with that insulation, so I don't think I'll have any condensation problems. But we're putting it up as well on these kitchen walls. And then I've got 2 rooms already done. We're just doing some accent walls. So there's one. And here's the 2nd and 3rd. Now, this lumber that I bought, it's a shiplap on one side. You got that nickel gap. And then if you turn it over, you pick up this little V-notch. So I'm thinking the V-notch is what I'm going to use for the ceiling. Now, if you've never run one of these ceilings, you'd think you just stick it up there, nail them, and run it to the other end. Nothing to worry about. This stuff will grow from one side to the other. If you ain't paying attention, you could have this side, you know, over 10, 15 boards. It could be, you know, 1/2 inch longer than the other side. And so where I'm piecing them, I'll have shorter pieces on each side. I'm contemplating actually where that V-notch is, offsetting it to where, because it'll have a trim piece running and covering the end. So I don't know if I want to make it a little different and not have them running together. That way I don't have to be so finicky with that joint from one side of the room to the other, because keep 3 pieces of material perfectly straight and running in a straight line 42 feet. It may be more fun than Travis wants to have. So I'm gonna make a decision here, but I may break that joint. That way, you know, I don't have to fight it as much. And it'll look a little different anyway. It'd break that joint up and it might look like I meant to do it that way. Well, all these can lights in here make for fun times when you're putting that wood ceiling up, but I guess if I want light, I gotta cut around them. But I ended up setting a little laser up. I will tell you, that's a handy tool. I use that thing for everything, but I flipped a chalk line through here just to give me a reference point to work off of, and where that plastic's up there, I didn't get a real good line. So I've got it lined up, so I'm just referencing off of it as I move down through here. early Saturday morning, Kristen and we basically gang cut all of what I'll need except for maybe the last 2 feet down here to get the center. So I'm gonna try to get them stuck up this morning, and then we'll move on to the edges. Sometimes doing this, not all boards are created equally, and they're not gonna fit. We'll have to add a little encouragement. Gracefully take it down. So right now on this side I'm at 148 1/4. Let's go to the other side and see how true we are. Have I mentioned how handy this thing is? All right, now on this I am a 1/4 inch long on this side. So meaning what I'll have to do is I'll hold it tight on this end, and then I'll leave just a 1/16 or so out on that side, and I'll bring it back level. But it's amazing how far these things can get out. You know, you're running over 8-foot room, it ain't gonna get out of whack on you too bad. But when you go 42 feet, if I didn't pay attention to this every 5 or 6 boards, I could get this thing out of square pretty quickly. And then, you know, it gets so out of square, it's hard to bring it back without it being noticeable. But now, you know, I can add a 1/16 over 4 boards, so I'll pull that 1/4 back out of it. You'll never know it. I almost have this intersection knocked out. I'm 397 1/2 over there. We'll go check this side and we'll see how close we are. All right, here we go. I'm a 1/16 off. Let's tear it all back out and redo it. Well, I think I can live with the 1/16. I'll finish this little center section up and then we'll work on the sides. But if you do this and you've never done it before and first time, just keep track of it as you go and you can play with it. But I mean, standing down here where I've had to adjust it to 1/16 or bump it up and catch a 1/4 up, you can't tell it from the ground. But it helps to stay on top of it, because if you don't, you could be an inch out before you know it. Let's go watch my little boy play basketball and we'll come back and try to finish her up. I'm thinking it's all not gonna get done today. Taper that back edge just a little bit, makes the boring there a little bit easier. All right, that's got the ceiling knocked out. Now let's move on to these 2 walls, and then we'll go up here and trim out around the ceiling. We'll have this tidied up. Well, the sun's come up again, so we're making pretty good headway on this wood. I got the ceiling done, and then Kristen and I finished this wall last night. Went up pretty good. This is pretty good stuff. It's pretty true. You'll get a little bow here and there. You got to work with it, but You'll see I've got a double seam here. This wall or this room is almost 20 feet wide, so I wanted a solid piece over my doorway, so that will break in behind the wall cabinets. And then up here at the top, I've broke it right here because we will have a vent hood that goes over the stove that will cover that seam there as well. All right, I got all my wood up. I'm glad to get that behind me. Finished sealing up yesterday, and then we put this wall up last night, and then we finished this up this morning. But this one had a bunch of holes to cut out for, a lot of boxes and some of these wires, but this wire here will come out, and that'll be for under cabinet lighting. And so we've got it switched over here. So we'll have lights there, and then I'm gonna put one of those pot fillers over the stove. So the stove will lay in here, and then we'll plumb into that. And then up top I've got for the vent hood, and then you'll have stove, and this will be open, so we continued that wire over here for these under cabinet lights. Now we've got a cabinet down here on the base that'll have a mixer pull out, so I went ahead and stubbed the wire out for that. And then the refrigerator has to have 2 outlets for it, and then, or the refrigerator and freezer, and then there's your water line. And then we've got a little storage cabinet over here that I'll have basically a drawer base, and then we're gonna have an open area to where you can put different stuff in, and then have storage over top of it. But I've got 2 circuits run over here, so I just stubbed those out. That way when I get my cabinet set in there, I can cut and put a double gang box in there, and then we'll have that wired up. But now I'm ready to go in here and start cutting my trim so I can trim everything out. I'm gonna strip this long ways, and then I'll strip it here, and we'll run it across and then around the edges. So I gotta go in here and rip that stuff down. I'm gonna rip it out of the same material. Well, I've hung about all this stuff I want to hang for today, but pretty well got it under wraps. Got the ceiling finished up, and I got everything trimmed out, and then we got our walls around the kitchen, and then over here at the fireplace, I'm gonna have 2 cabinets, one on each side. So I just brought this down below the top of it, and then put me one down at the bottom, that way I can bump in there. But we'll get that cabinet stuck in there, put a countertop on it, and then we'll have a stone guy come. He'll stone around that, back into the cabinet. So anyway, some trim work left to do. Once I'm gonna go ahead and put my floors in. We're putting an LVP floor in here. We're gonna go ahead and stick it down next week, and that way I can trim down on top of it, and then we'll cover it up good, and then we'll go back and putting trim and paint and touching up and getting this thing a little closer to being ready to move into. But I'll tell you 2 takeaways from the old wood installation is those little laser levels. And the one I have is the Dovo H3 360G. Now, I've never had any kind of sponsorship on my YouTube channel, but Dovo did send that to me about 6 months ago. And I told them I'd put it through its paces, and then if I seen that it was working pretty well, I would include it in the video. So I've used that thing for a lot. And battery life lasts a long time, and every time I've turned it on, it's worked. So I've been pleased with it. But they ain't paying me nothing to say that, but they did send it to me. But I've been appreciative because I was actually looking at them, And I was looking at other brands, and anyway, they sent that one to me, so it worked out perfect. So I've used it outside and in, so it's been a good little tool. But start straight. If you're gonna work around the bottoms, get you a good level line, hold that up off your floor a little bit, and then you can work, and just as long as you stay on top of it, you can keep it in pretty good shape. But anyway, if you watch this one, I appreciate it. Like I say, we got floors coming next week, and then we'll move this thing along. But appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.